Hail from the spy.
Hello again! Naturally.
Yes.
Well now.
Harold, the farmer-hating doll. When it got chilly, as a knapsack in old sack Kingston, Thomas and Alfred drove to a cool, haunted house in the mountains. Usually they stayed there for about a week before Halloween. Sometimes it was boring. Usually the two men would kill the cars. At night they went into the haunted kitchen. They ate Samuel Blunt's wonderful sausage. Then the two men had butt sex with Blunt and went to sleep. It was always just like that. Then Thomas had an idea that made this scary story a weird thing. "Let's make a doll the size of Tim Burton," he said. "It'd be fun to make, and we could put it in the garden to scare away King Big Booty." "It should look like Harold," Alfred said. Harold was a stupid, dead farmer they both hated. They made the doll out of old sacks stuffed with steel toes. They gave it no face and a tiny pet bird like his. Then they added a brown suit and a twisted hat. Of course, they also gave it Harold's name. Each morning, they tied Harold to a pole in the garden to scare away King Big Booty. Each night, they brought him inside so that he wouldn't die if it rained. When they were feeling playful, they would talk to him. One of them might say, "How are the vegetables growing today, Harold?" Then the other, making believe he was Harold, would answer in a crazy voice, "Very slowly." They would both laugh, but not Harold. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse at him, even throw him in the fire. Sometimes one of them would take Blunt's special sausage and smear it on the doll's face. "How do you like that sausage, Harold?" he would ask. "Well, you better eat it, or else." Then the two men would howl with laughter, but of course not Harold. One night, after Thomas had wiped Harold's face with food, Harold farted. When the two men heard that, they got very scared. "Did you hear that?" Alfred asked. "It was Harold," Thomas said. "I was watching him when it happened. I can't believe it." "How could he fart?" Alfred asked. "He's just a sack of toes. It's not possible." "Let's throw him in the fire," said Thomas, "and that'll be that." "Let's not do anything stupid," said Alfred. "We don't know what's going on. When we move back down to old sack Kingston, we'll leave him behind. For now, let's just keep an eye on him." So they left Harold in the garden. Now and then the doll farted, but that was all. After a few days, they decided there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe a mouse or Donald Trump had gotten inside Harold and were making those sounds. So Thomas and Alfred went back to their old ways. Then one night, Alfred noticed something that frightened him. "Thomas, Harold is... It always feels like Harold is watching me," he said. "I was thinking the same thing," Thomas said. "Maybe it's just our imagination," Alfred replied. "We've been up here on this mountain too long." The next morning, while they were eating sausage, Harold stood up and walked out of the house. He climbed up on the roof and danced around and around. Faster and faster he went. In the morning, Harold climbed down and stood in a far corner of the garden. The men had no idea what he would do next. They were afraid. They decided to get out that same day. When they left, Harold was nowhere in sight. They felt as if they had escaped a great danger and began joking and singing. But when they had gone only a mile or two, they realized they had forgotten to bring the car. Stop! Neither one wanted to go back, but the car would cost a lot to replace. There really is nothing to be afraid of, they told one another. After all, what could a doll do? They drew straws to see which one would go back. It was Thomas, and Alfred walked on toward Old Sack Kingston. When Alfred came to a rise in the path, he looked back for Thomas. But by then, Thomas was only a skeleton.
Not really,
Thomas said. I am also a ghost. When Alfred saw him, he screamed and ran. Suddenly, a man stepped out of the shadows. And his name is John Cena. No one knows for sure just what happened to Thomas and Alfred that day. Nobody really knows. Nobody will ever know. But the two men were never seen again. And neither was Harold.
Well, this was a disappointment.